So do you ever get nervous about cutting holes in your van? Today we're going to do it twice in the back of this Sprinter. We're preparing the area right now, getting it all cleaned up. We're going to use two different techniques on the two windows so you can see a couple of different ways to do it. Then we're going to put in these two new windows on the back. Stay tuned. Alright, so we've gone through, we've wiped up all the outside of the windows and cleaned up this area. We've cleaned up the insides where we can see all around. The two different techniques we're going to use on one of these windows, we're going to go from the inside and we're going to make little divots all the way around, tap them with a hole punch so that you get an outline out here on the outside. We'll cover it with some blue paint and mark the line. We're going to cut it with a jigsaw. Make sure you got a nice clean new blade. The other side, we're going to use a nibbler and just follow from the inside edge all the way around with a nibbler. So you can get a couple of different ways depending on the tools that you have to cut out these windows. Let's get started making our divots in this guy. When you go around the edges, the corners, you're going to want to stay a little closer with your dots just so that you get a nice edge on that. I like to go about every half an inch around a corner so you can mark it. As it gets straighter, you can go a little further out. We've used our nail and our hammer from the inside and followed all the way around the contour and made these divots all the way around. Use a sharp nail and a good hammer. Just tap them and you can see this outline. We're going to mark it now from line to line to line all the way through with a permanent marker. I like to use just a straight block of wood to help connect the dots on some of the longer runs. So let's go through and draw those lines. You would use this same technique if you were going to do this on the side windows for like the big windows that would go right behind the driver of the passenger seat. There's a similar kind of an outline marker. You always want to verify with your window first. Put your window up against the outside and verify with the manufacturer of that window that it matches that space for your van. But these Sprinters have that interior contour and the windows are made to fit into that contour. Alright, so we've got our line marked all the way around here on the outside. First though, the jigsaw, as we run around, we don't want to mar up this outside. It is going to be covered by this outside window, but depending on where that's going to be and in general, we want to kind of protect this space. So we're going to put some tape all around this outside edge to protect that. And we're going to put on some protective gear and do some cutting. Now, depending on where this jigsaw goes and this outside edge right here, this is going to be exposed permanently. This is part of the permanent after. It's going to be visible all the time after this is done. So we're going to want to protect that edge as well, all the way around, just in case we have. We've protected all the outside edge all the way around here with a jigsaw. Make sure it's nice and tight so you don't have this interfering with your jigsaw and your cuts. You don't want to have that bind or grab. Okay. We're also going to tape up the foot of our jigsaw, the base, just to make sure that that's also kind of protected. and we'll cut a couple holes. Okay, so last couple things as we get ready to cut. You can see I've taped up the bottom of my jigsaw, taped up around the edges. I'm going to enter through these holes and cut. These holes still have, they're a little rough from the drill cut, and it's going to grab and bind onto this. So I'm going to just grind these down real quick so that that's smooth and that the jigsaw's not going to cut. One other thing to note on this, that line is exactly on the inside. We can sand down a little bit more, but it's hard to put the material back. So we're going to go just on the inside of this black line all the way around. Then we'll come through with a sander on my grinder later and just clean up that edge. All right, so there's a couple of things before I finish this cut that I want to walk through as you go through and cut this thing. So first of all, you can see here, we've got our hole. We cleaned this up with a grinder with a sanding blade just so it didn't bind against our jigsaw. We ran over to the line, then we kind of cut up and around our line right here. And just on the inside of that line, after this is all out, we can clean up this edge with our grinder again with a sanding blade on there. You'll notice right up here at the top, I left a few inches open. Now I've cut around this corner up here, and I've cut around this corner right over here, but I've left this connected. What we're going to do is do the same thing down here at the bottom, and then we're going to tape up these corners. So I'm going to cut down here. I'm going to leave a little bit right here in the middle along a straight edge. Then we're going to tape the sides and finish those cuts and take it out. Notice how I don't start the jigsaw until the blade's already in, and I don't remove the jigsaw until the blade has stopped moving. If you do it any other way, there's a good chance this is going to kick and scratch up your van. So make sure it's all the way in and stopped before it goes in or out. All right, so as you probably saw in that video, I went slow, I went deliberate. I used plenty of ladders so that I could see really well. I also had a headlamp on just so that you can see that blade and exactly where you are relative to the line that you're cutting. You know the old adage, measure twice, cut once. So we were careful about marking this from the inside, kind of double checked where it was going to look, and just go slow. So it's scary to cut the hole, but you know exactly where it's going to go, and you move slowly as you cut through each component. Be deliberate. So now we can remove the tape and remove that piece, and we'll clean up this opening. Take a look at it. So we're just going to go through all the way around and smooth this edge. We want it to where we can kind of run our fingers through here on the outside and not feel burrs on the outside and on the inside. So now we have a nice clean ground edge all the way around. We're going to go ahead and get ready to do our painting to make sure that this doesn't rust. So what we're going to do on this separate door, the second technique I'm going to show is to use a nibbler. It's a small tool. It has a little hole punch there in the middle, and when you operate it, the punch just operates really quick and you can walk through. It actually is a much cleaner cut. There's a lot less mess. It creates these little tiny discs, like 3mm discs that just go into the bag. So it's a much cleaner, quieter, easier cut. And what we're going to do, I've cut an 1.5 inch hole through the base here for the nibbler to go through, and then we're just going to run this right up to the edge from the inside here and run right around that edge. So that was the Nibbler. A couple of nice things about it. It's quieter, much cleaner, and as you could see, I could kind of work my way up and around, stop, reset, keep going, and I'm just using that punch to follow right along from the inside line. So I didn't have to punch the holes, I didn't have to tape it, I didn't have to, you know, protect that outside. What we can see from the outside is that we have a nice clean cut. It makes a nice clean cut all the way around. I'll get a close-up of this in just a minute. All right, so we've used the jigsaw on one side, we've used the Nibbler on the other side, two different techniques to cut the holes out. Used the grinder with a sanding blade on both afterwards to smooth it out. So let me show you a little bit of what I'm doing right here. We're going to put this trim around here, and the trim is going to just sit over this lip as it goes around really easily. But when it gets to these wide spots, it doesn't fit over there quite as well. So I'm taking pliers, and I'm just kind of pinching these down, especially here at the edges, as much as possible to get it so that that trim is going to go over it. And so that I don't mar up this outside face, I'm using a wood block on the outside and just going kind of right on this edge on the inside. And now it's nice and clean, it's been wiped down. We're going to go ahead and paint this edge all the way around, and then we're going to take a break for lunch and let that dry. Then we'll come back and we'll finish installing the window. Okay, so our glue is dried, and we're going to go ahead now and install our trim ring. What we have is got a nice clean edge on it. It's a clamp with kind of a metal core and a plastic mallet. And I like to put my bottom edge just down here along the bottom. You don't see it as much when you're laying in bed from the inside. And we're just going to start it. Doesn't matter which side is in or out. Get it started on here, and then work our way around and cut it at the end. There we go. So you can see as I go around the corners, I'll make sure it's nice and seated all the way through. As I come to a corner, I'll just get it kind of started, and I'll work my way through forward, making sure it's seated all the way so it's sucked tight into there. And then as I come up to this end, I'm going to get real close and I'm going to cut that off and tap it right in. Okay. We're going to cut that loose right here at the end with just some sheet metal snips. There is a metal core to this, so it's a little easier to cut with sheet metal shears. Right there. Okay. And then tap that in there. That's it. We have completed trim ring all the way around, nice and clean. Let's open up the door and take a look from the inside. Okay. All right. So now this is our finished edge, right? We've cut our hole, and we've painted and cleaned up that edge. So now we're just going to kind of come in here and see how this looks from the inside, which is our finished side. We forgot to turn the camera on, but I'll show you a little bit of what I just did. We have a primer that we have. The primer came along with the kit that came with these windows we're getting ready to install. So there's a Sikaflex urethane adhesive that we're going to put on, a window glue, and there's a primer that goes this black strip. So it came with a little sponge applicator. We just kind of squeezed a little bit into that sponge applicator and did kind of a this black stripe all the way around. We're going to let this dry for about 10 minutes. And then we're going to put a dab of it right here on these two dots and a dab down below on these two dots. We'll do one window at a time, and then we're going to tilt that window right up into place. We're going to use this Sikaflex P2G primer-listed glass, and it's got an applicator tip, and I don't know how well you can see this. There's like a frosted part of this and a clear part of this. There's a notch, and you'll see it much more clearly after I cut that notch. That didn't look clear at all. So let's just take a little cutting surface here and line that up. So this is going to go a little better. So we cut the tip off, and then we cut that V into there. As I place the bead, that V is going to be out on the top facing me, and up against the wall is the opposite side of that bead, so it's going to have this nice big V pointing up at me. You'll see that as we go. Just to recap, before we cut the holes, measure twice, cut once. Just be careful and look at what you're going to do in sort of a dry run fashion first, then be deliberate and slow as you go through the process, and it's not that difficult. Take your time. Same thing with this here. I'm going to get up on the ladder and I'm going to do a dry run with an empty caulking gun just to understand how and where I'm going to want this bead. The bead to put on this window is the most important part. I want a good bead all the way around. I generally am going to want a constant bead across the bottom and a constant bead across the top with no joints in it. If I have to make a joint, I'm going to want it on one of the sides. That way, all the water that runs off as it runs off the top or across the bottom, it's going to have that constant bead and the best waterproofing. If you've got gaps in the bead or thick spots and thin spots, that's where you're going to have the potential for gaps or leaks in the van. Start right over in this upper left corner and work my way up around with a constant bead down this side. I'll probably stop right in here. So I've got all around the top corner and down. Then I can join that bead from here, come down through. This is all just about whether you're right-handed, left-handed, and how you're going to move through this material. Down through, across the bottom, right here in front of me, across the bottom, and then tie it into this one. At the two components where it ties in, I'm going to want to overlap those about a ½ an inch, and then we can take a toothpick or a Q-tip or something and just kind of join those together. This stuff is very sticky. When it gets onto the surface, it's going to want to stay right there on the surface. And we'll get a close-up shot after we get this bead on so you can see what the bead is supposed to look like. Take this in close so we can see this bead here. So from an edge, you can see it sticks out quite a bit. That's why we had that notch. And it's kind of a sharp bead that was on that V that comes out of there. And as we come around, you can see that notch and that sharp V sticking out. And it sticks out past the material, which is what we want. The window's gonna drop into that all the way around. See if we can see that bead there. Okay. In place. Okay, so I'm getting positioned. Get the bottom. I'm going to put this bottom corner right where I want it, right about there. Does that look good? Right about, yeah, kind of hold that. Got her? And okay, she's in. So let's line up this edge, maybe a little over. How's that look there? That edge looks pretty good. What about the bottom edge? Down, up?
Down a little bit so I can see some of the paint. There we go.
Right there?
Okay.
It's looking pretty good. We're just going to look at the top and the bottom, and then we're going to tap it into place around the bead.
Maybe.
So I'm just giving a light tap all the way around that bead. This is ready to go. Kind of hold that corner so that that one doesn't move, and I'll look at the other side. So we got our windows fully installed. Let that glue cure, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope it helps you cut the holes in your van for your windows, your fan up the top, or whatever it's going to be. Leave a comment down below if there's other videos you'd like to see, and hit the subscribe button because I've got a bunch of videos coming up soon as I build out a brand new Sprinter van from start to finish. See you in the next one.